How to build your first IQbot solution. This demo will take you through the steps of building your first IQbot solution. IQbot is a product from Automation Anywhere that allows corporations to classify digital documents and pull important data out of those documents. It's intended to speed up the handling time of incoming documents and reduce costs, allowing human workers to focus on value-add work instead of monotonous, repetitive tasks. For today's example, we will use sample invoices from two clients. The first sample invoice is from a firm called Fiction Solutions. This firm sends a separate invoice for each employee that works with BP3. The invoice has invoice date, invoice number, time period, and consultant name in the header portion of the invoice. Below this information, we have a list of all the projects the consultant has worked, along with the hours, rate, and amount. The invoice also has payment instructions at the end of the document. The second invoice is from a company called A1 Consulting. Rather than sending an invoice for each consultant, this company sends a single invoice for all of its consultants working at BP3. In this case, invoice date and invoice number are still at the header level, albeit a different location, while invoice period and consultant name are at the details level along with project name, hours, rate, and amount. So let's log into the Automation Anywhere control room. To create a new IQbot solution, we need to click on Learning Instances first. After we create a new instance, we're asked to specify an instance name and a description. The document type specifies the type of document we're processing through this instance. This document type could be a pre-configured document type from IQbot, or a custom document type that we define. For example, if we select the invoice document type, the form will display predefined fields that are applicable for an invoice. I can select the appropriate fields and add additional fields in subsequent steps. However, in this case, we will select the document type Other and name our document type BP3 Customer Invoice. Next, we will upload 4 documents, 2 of each type. For the first document sample, form fields will be invoice number, invoice date, time period, consultant name, and payment instructions. We will also capture repeating fields, project name, hours, hourly rate, and amount from the tables in the documents. For the second document, we will still have invoice number and date at the form level, whereas time period and consultant name are inside the repeating section. Let's add 2 additional fields in the repeating section for time period and consultant name, so these values can be captured. Once all the fields are added, we can click on Create Instance and Analyze. This analyzes the sample documents and auto-maps fields wherever possible. This step may take a few minutes, depending on the number of documents and the complexity of the sample documents. Once this step is complete, we are asked to review the auto-mapping that was created by IQbot. When we click on the invoice number field, we have a chance to modify the data type, field label, and field value. In this case, let's change the data type to number. Next, we need to change the invoice date to a date type and correct the value. Notice that the payment instruction field was not auto-mapped, so we need to manually select the text on the page. As there's no label for this field, we can leave the label mapping as blank. Next, we'll review the mapping for tabular data. Project name was not auto-mapped, so we'll need to map both the column name and column value. While mapping the value, we need to ensure that the entire column is selected by dragging the cursor from the start to the end of the column. The hours field was auto-mapped correctly, same with rate and amount. Time period in the repeating section is not applicable for this document type, so we'll mark this as optional without any mapping. Same goes for consultant name. Notice that once the fields are mapped, they all have green check marks next to them. Now let's look at the table/section settings. A non-null value should be set for the repeating section. In this case, project name is correctly set. This completes the training for the first sample document type. We can check the extraction results by clicking on the See Extraction Results button. In the first row of the table, notice that the rate and amount columns are not read correctly, as the bot is including data from outside the table. Let's click on the Back to Training button to fix this. Under table/section settings, we need to set an end of table/section indicator. In this case, we'll use total amount to indicate the end of the table. Now we can see that the extraction results show the correct data. If necessary, these results can be extracted to CSV for further analysis. Let's save this configuration and move on to the next document type. Because the time period and consultant name fields are in the tabular section and not in the header area, let's mark the header fields as optional. Once all the fields are mapped, we can check the extraction results and fix any issues if required before saving the bot. As you can see, the learning instance has 2 document types created, each of which has its own mapping. For task bots to access an IQ bot, we need to deploy to production. To do this, we will first move the individual bots to production and then the learning instance. On the Bots tab, we can deploy bots to production by simply toggling the Action button. Next, we'll do the same for the learning instance. At this point, the IQ bot is ready to process production documents. But to do this, we need to create a task bot. For sake of time, our team has already created a task bot for us. This bot loops through any files in the specified input folder and completes a set of actions on each one. Each individual invoice will be uploaded using the IQBot upload document command, which requires us to specify a learning instance. In this case, we will select the learning instance that we just deployed. Next, the bot will wait 15 seconds for IQBot to process the files and then download the output files to a local folder. Let's run this task bot to process the 5 sample documents we have in the input folder. As you can see, only 3 out of the 5 were successfully processed. The output folder only has 3 documents downloaded. Now let's go back to the Learning Instances page and click on the validator icon to see what went wrong with the 2 documents. It appears that there was an issue with the payment instruction mapping. We can manually select this value for the document to complete its processing. IQBot also uses this mapping as training for processing similar documents in the future. Alternatively, we could go back to the bot and map the value again so this issue does not reappear. After we save the first document, the next document in the validator queue pops up, and we can correct the errors that occurred in the same fashion as the previous document. Now that these documents are validated, they're available for downloading. We can download the completed documents by disabling the taskbot steps before the download step. In the interest of maintainability, we would likely create a separate bot that is pre-configured for downloading corrected files like these. Thanks for watching how to build your first IQBot solution. And remember, with BP3, there's a faster way to do that.